Questo è il Majestic 12, l'organismo di sicurezza più avanzato del mondo. Salga.
Dove stiamo andando?
Cercava la verità, no? Roswell.
Allora quelle storie erano tutte vere.
Nulla è tutto vero. Dipende con chi si parla.
Al Blue Book non ho visto niente del genere.
Abbiamo confiscato ogni prova prima che potessero arrivarci.
Ma allora a che serve quel progetto? È solo una copertura per nascondere il Majestic.
Fu rinvenuto a Roswell. Lo porto con me per non dimenticare che chiunque abbia costruito quella nave dispone di una tecnologia formidabile.
Crede che sia opera dei russi?
Le sembra un russo? Non si sente in imbarazzo. Ci vuole molto bicarbonato per digerire la verità. Regola numero 1. Chi si iscrive al Majestic non deve rivelare i suoi segreti a nessuno.
Com'è andata la tua giornata? Novità?
Niente di che. La solita routine.
This week, whistleblower David Grusch told News Nation that non-human craft has been recovered and kept by the United States in a task force retrieval program.
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You are one of the most trusted former intelligence officials in the US defense and intelligence establishment.
Yes, I was.
The Pentagon has undermined Grusch's claims about this alleged secret program. Department of Defense spokesperson Susan Go said in an email to Fox News Digital that to date, AARO has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. Back in 2017, the New York Times published an article that revealed a secret Pentagon program to investigate UFOs. One of the authors, Leslie Kean, has been reporting on UFOs for many years and also published a book in 2010 called UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. Here to tell us more about her time reporting on UFOs and recent claims on the topic of extraterrestrial life is Leslie Kean. Welcome.
Hi, thank you very much. Great to be with you guys.
It's great to be here with you. What do you make of Grusch's claims that there are craft or potentially even pilots?
I can't comment at all on the pilot part of it because that was not part of our reporting, and I never spoke to him about that. So that's aside. But in terms of his I guess you'd call them claims, his allegations that there are actual retrieved craft. I take it very, very seriously. Otherwise, I wouldn't have reported on it. And not only because of what he has told me, but because of what a number of other people have told me, quite a few, both on and off the record, but mainly off the record, that there are many others like him who are not whistleblowers, but have the same information. And in fact, others that may have more direct information than he does, because they have been inside programs, which he has not. So I think there's a lot more to come, and there's a lot more to back up his claims than what has actually been made public.
And can you tell us more about what you've heard about the retrieval of crafts that are specifically non-human? Because I think I could understand someone saying, or many people coming forward to say, that pilots have seen objects that they couldn't identify, that maybe parts of crafts were then retrieved, and maybe we couldn't explain where they'd come from. But the operating theory would be they were craft from other countries or parts of weapons programs or something. This sounds like specifically it's being described as non-human, or that there's something indicated in what was recovered that this originates off-world or something like that. Have you heard, when you've talked to people on the inside, the non-human part of it specifically emphasized, or just a mystery? Well, this doesn't originate from the U.S. government. We don't know.
Right. It's a very good distinction. Great question, Robbie, because we have to make that distinction here. We are actually talking about non-human, which means these have been determined to be that through whatever scientific process has been used to make that determination. And all of that information is classified. There was one statement that Grusch made in our story alluding to describing the types of processes that are used. I don't have it right in front of me. You guys might have it, but the problem is for us in the public is that all of the data on that is classified. But I do want to make the point that he's making a very, very distinct distinction here from, between something that's just anomalous and maybe we can't figure it out versus something that has actually been determined to be of non-human origin. There are two different things. And he's talking about the latter here, that these have actually been determined to be of non-human origin. And I have spoken to others who have confirmed the same thing.
So how would we make sense of this and the recent reporting around UFOs or UAPs? Is this a soft launch of clear awareness of extraterrestrial life, but maybe we don't want to tell the public everything so as to roll it out slowly and give them time to process it? Can we understand this to be a soft launch of our awareness of extraterrestrial life based on the craft that we know that is there, that has been recovered?
I mean, it's such a great question, Jessica, and it's so hard to answer that. I'm a reporter, and so whenever I get some good information that I think is important, I'll put it out there. But I don't really know if there's some kind of orchestrated campaign going on behind the scenes. It's hard for me to comment on that. And I also think, the thing about extraterrestrial life, that's such a loaded term. I mean, if we have a craft that is not of non-human origin, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's some extraterrestrial aliens that have come here and crashed it or dropped it here. Or I think the actual origin of it could be much more complicated than that. The concept of extraterrestrial life or what the intelligence might be that's behind the creation of these vehicles is a big unanswered question. And I don't think that's a simple one. But, it is an incredible mystery, and it's an incredible claim to be made here. I mean, this is absolutely mind-blowing, and I think what's important about it is that it lead to further investigation, because there is no proof of this, and we don't offer proof of that, and neither does David Grusch. It's all about the people that he has spoken to that have provided him with information. So the Congress needs to take this up, and they just announced today that they do want to hold, the Appropriations Committee wants to hold hearings on this. So it's the beginning of an investigation that needs to happen to find out more.
What is your awareness of how, I guess, how widespread within the government, what levels of people having access to this information that has been classified? Obviously, we're talking about in a political context, Donald Trump, other people having classified documents that they took or that they have in their private possession. Because my skepticism begins to fire. I fully believe governments, including our own, suppress information all the time. The more people involved with knowledge for the longer period of time, the more I start to become skeptical that it's possible to keep a secret of this magnitude. How closely guarded has this what has been reported to government officials been kept?
You mean over the years, right?
Yes.
Because these programs go back a long time. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously been incredibly closely guarded. People have come out from time to time and talked about it, but they haven't had anything to back it up, and they haven't had the level of credibility that David Grusch has. They hadn't filed complaints with the ICIG. They haven't gone to Congress and given hours and hours of information. So this is kind of at a new level of any person that's ever come forward before, because of who he is and how he's going about this. And I would have to say, now it is coming out. I mean, yes, it's been held very, very tightly. One person involved told me that it costs more for the program to maintain the security that has to be maintained to keep it that way than it does for them to actually do the work that they're doing. I mean, the security is a huge element of it, but that's starting to break now. I mean, this is the beginning of that. So maybe you can't hold on to it forever. You just take someone like David Grusch to come forward and feel it's his obligation to do so, and everything changes. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, really fascinating and exciting stuff. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about this with us, Leslie.
Well, you know, journalists say, follow the money. We physicists say, follow the evidence. Follow the people who have access to the evidence. Now, this is right out of a Hollywood script. In the past, we've had farmers and suburbanites say they saw something out there. The burden of proof was on them to prove that they were extraterrestrial visitations. Now the burden of proof has shifted. Now the Pentagon has to prove that these aren't extraterrestrial. And now we have this senior Pentagon official, former Pentagon official David Grusch, who says that there are evidence of not just the wreckage of UFOs, but an intact vessel, perhaps even the bodies. And again, the difference is that this is no longer just a farmer or a suburbanite saying they saw something out there. Now there is a debate within the Pentagon itself at the highest level, with different people within the military contradicting each other. And so I think that this is a good thing, because now perhaps the truth will come out.
So one of the claims that David Grusch makes is that the evidence he has witnessed suggests that of the crash wreckage, some of the crash wreckage that's been retrieved, the elements are not of human origin. And he also states that they've recovered pilots, maybe singular, but it seemed as though it was of non-human species. And I can only imagine that that sort of gets your spidey senses tingling. What are your thoughts about that kind of possibility?
Well, I'm a scientist. We have to be open to the truth and to data. That's what we physicists work on. The more information we get, the better. Now, so far, we have not seen the smoking gun. We have not seen evidence of DNA, for example, from these alien bodies. We haven't seen alien transistors and alien circuits. That would clinch it right there. No ifs, ands, or buts. As soon as we have alien DNA or an alien chip, end of story. However, we're not there yet, because we just have eyewitness accounts of people who've encountered these things, but we don't have the smoking gun. And until we have the smoking gun, we scientists have to reserve our final judgment. But the very fact that we're talking about this at all is amazing. The burden of proof has shifted. Now the Pentagon has to prove that these aren't extraterrestrial. This is, I think, a milestone.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you and I are talking about this, and not because it was on, you know, News of the World or a supermarket tabloid, is pretty remarkable. This is coming from a man who was an Air Force veteran, former member of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. He's a whistleblower. He's not, you know, a quack. And so I'm, you know, on one hand, I can't quite believe that there's a non-human pilot that was recovered. On the other hand, sometimes I wonder if we just think we're way smarter than we are. And by the way, Dr. Kaku, you're one of the smartest people I've ever encountered. Do you sometimes think we're only at the nascence of universal knowledge?
Yeah, I think we're just beginning to understand how gorgeous this universe is. The fact that we've now seen so many planets orbiting other star systems, they could be homeworlds to other intelligent beings. And we now have a census of the Milky Way galaxy. Every star, on average, has a planet going around it. In other words, think about it, 100 billion planets, minimum, in your backyard, in the Milky Way galaxy. And that's why I think that to assume that there's nobody out there is ridiculous. Of course they're out there. The only debate is to whether or not they can reach us, but yes, they are out there.
Well, then there's the debate, discussion, or fear, you can pick any of those, that they may be unfriendlies, they may be hostile. They may look at us as a nuisance rather than something that's fascinating, if that is the fact, if they do actually exist. Can you speak to the issue of hostility? And this, it seems like we're talking pie in the sky here, but if there is an issue of hostility, Do we globally have a scientific community that can convince our political leaders around the world that we are far stronger as one than trying to be the leaders in whatever our programs are discovering?
Well, if you walk down a trail in a forest and you encounter a squirrel, do you go out there and try to conquer the squirrel and his habitat? No, maybe you want to try to talk to the squirrel. Eventually, you get kind of bored because the squirrels don't talk back to you. But in the same way, if the aliens can reach us from outer space, they are hundreds, thousands of years more advanced than us, and we're simply not a threat to them. They could have done damage to us decades ago, but here we are talking about it. So I don't fear for them. However, there's always a possibility of what happened to Montezuma in Mexico City when Cortez and his troops came. The Cortez had gunpowder. He had the horse. He had, we think, smallpox. He had all the weaponry necessary to devastate the Mexican civilization. And so I think that we should not reach out to them and advertise our existence until we know what their intentions are. So I'm all in favor of the SETI project, which is to scan the heavens to look for intelligent life in outer space. But I don't think we should deliberately announce our existence to the alien neighbors we have in our neighborhood until we find out what their intentions are.
I'm with you, but I always have been and I always will be. And if they do prove to be real, I'm going to be in your backyard asking to hang out with you while we figure this one out. Dr. Kaku, thank you so much. I'll just remind our viewers that your book is Quantum Supremacy. This conversation could have gone on for 6 months and we wouldn't even have scratched the surface of how much I want to talk to you about. So you'll have to come back. Thank you for watching.